I'm using different markers here. So line 3, the vertical line is negative 2.5, 0. Now check it out. What do you think the y-intercept is? So it doesn't intercept the y-axis at all. So when we start trying to look for the y-intercept of this vertical line, you see it doesn't cross the y-axis at all. So a vertical line has no y-intercept. Or just none. If we look at line number 4, so check it out. This is line number 4, and we're looking for the x and the y-intercept. Well, line 4 is a horizontal line, so it has a y-intercept. And I think this y-intercept, you think this is 2.5 positive? So the y-intercept So again, we're looking at this horizontal line. We know it crosses the y-axis here. So x is 0 and y is 1, 2, 2.5. So x is 0. And we'll say y is about 2.5. This is just an illustration. And again, now this line does not cross the x-axis. So there is, I'm just going to put none. So if you just kind of look at this as we look at the y-intercepts again, wherever you see the x-intercept, notice that the y-coordinates are 0. And if you see the y-coordinates, the x value is 0, except with the horizontal and vertical lines. All right, so if we look at these 3 examples, number 2, 5, and 7, the direction says find the x and y intercept. So we know that the x-intercept is where y equals 0, and the y-intercept is where x equals 0. And that's a characteristic that you want to remember. So if we look at number 2, and we're going to find the x-intercept. So when we do the x-intercept, we can already put a 0 in for y, because we know that the x-intercept is where y equals 0. So if we take this equation and let y equal 0, we have 2x plus 5. 2x plus 5 times 0 equals 2. So that means that 2x equals 2, because that's 0, and then x equals 1. So the x-intercept is 1, 0. If we look at the y-intercept, we know that the y-intercept is always where x equals 0. So we can almost do this in our head, but I will erase this and just show the math of it here. So when the y-intercept is where x equals 0, so when x is 0, we have 2 times 0 plus 5y equals 2. Again, x is 0 here, so we have 5y equals 2. And then dividing both sides by 5, so y equals 2/5. But again, so these are the intercepts. So you have an equation, it says find the x and y intercept. And what you want to know as a student, or you understand as a student, is the x-intercept is everywhere y equals 0. So you can go and put the 0 there. y-intercept is where x equals 0, using the same equation and just solve it. And when you work with 0, it's pretty, I mean, it's sometimes that, so this is your x and y intercept. Let's look at number 5. You have x minus y minus 3 equals 0. Again, it says find the intercepts and draw the graph. You know that x has to be 0 for your y-intercept and y has to be 0 for your x-intercept. So you can just go and put those zeros in and then use the equation. So when x is 0 here, so when x is 0 here, x is 0. So I'm just going to go and put a 0 when x is 0 here. So that means that that's canceled. So we end up with minus y minus 3 equals 0. We're solving for y. So negative y equals 3 if you just add 3 to both sides. And then y equals negative 3 because you divide them by the coefficient negative 1. So when x is 0, y is negative 3. All right, so what about when y is 0? We're using the same equation, but now we're going to let y equal 0. So when y equals 0, so when we have y equals 0, so we have x minus, this is a 0 here, so we don't have to write that down, minus 3 equals 0. And then x equals 3. So when y is 0, x equals 3. And let's just draw the graph. So basically, we are drawing this graph by finding the intercepts. So this is 0, negative 3. Again, starting at the origin, we're going to go down 3. You can see that this is the y-intercept, where x equals 0, it intercepts the y-axis. The point 3, 0. Again, starting at the origin, you're going to the right. This is 3 and 0. This is the x-intercept because it's crossing the x-axis. And this is the graph of a line that we have graphed using the intercepts. So when you have the direction says find the graph of the line using the intercept, you already know you're going to use 0 for x and 0 for y and find the corresponding value. Let's look at number 7. 2x plus y equals 3. Again, they want you to find the intercepts. Using the intercepts, just not put 0 in for x and y, and then use the equation to get the corresponding values. So you have 2x plus y equals 3. Okay, so x is 0. When x is 0, y equals 3. And when y is 0, again, using the same equation, 2x plus 0 equals 3, because now y is 0. Y is 0 here. So 2x equals 3. And then x equals 3/2. I just skipped a step there. You're going to divide both sides by 2, and x equals 3/2. And 3/2 is like 1.5. So we can graph it. We can plot it on the graph. So we have 0, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's the y-intercept where x equals 0. And then we have 3/2, which is 1.5. So we can go over 1 and maybe 1/2, and y is 0. And this is the x-intercept because it's on the x-axis. And the graph of that line looks like this. I'm trying to make my line straight. I don't have a straight edge right now. Okay, so that's the equation of the line 2x plus y equals 3. And again, now we haven't gotten slopes yet, but look at this line, it's rising to the left. So when you have lines rising to the left, that means it's a negative slope. But what we're learning now is just about the intercepts. And the intercepts is that when you use the intercept, x is 0 and y is 0, and then you solve for the corresponding variable, x or y. Okay, so that's 3.2. Graphing linear equation in two variables. So that's 3.2, graphing linear equations in two variables. And we graph by plotting points, your x and y. We use the horizontal and vertical lines. We know that that's when x equals something or y equals something. A horizontal line is where y equals some constant, and a vertical line is where x equals some constant. And then we learn how to graph using the x and y intercepts. And again, you want to know when you're looking at the x-intercept, is where y equals 0, you're going to have some x value. The y-intercept is where x equals 0, you're going to have some value of y. So that's 3.2, graphing linear equations in two variables.